Hello, and welcome to Khyber Shards, a 5th edition actual play show set in the Eberron campaign world. Eric, what happened last time?
We didn't plan
Surprise.
this.
I thought he was going to do it again.
Oh, God. Yeah, we didn't recap before you hit record. Ari went and talked to Dragonhawk. And Pog went and talked to Solarka. And Shade stayed with Ezri and had a surprise visitor to the house in the form of Mrs. B. Donnabella's mom brought cookies, and Ezri took the cookies and made a stack of them. And then Shade had a very lovely conversation with Mrs. Brighttomb about what it means to be a friend and about setting healthy boundaries with your friends.
And how often murder
Donnabella
comes into the equation.
Yes. And I think that's everything that happened. Yeah. Ari tried to set up a deal with the Dragonhawk to get Lucan released. So that was, yeah.
And we found out cool information about Cal.
Yes, we did. Thank you. Cal should have wings, but Cal doesn't have wings.
Oh,
And now I
right.
bet
Yes,
Shade's
that's
gonna
the
try to
information.
Make it to where Cal has wings. So
Why no Cal have wings?
because Cal baby, Cal a baby.
Okay, yes. That is where we left off, with everybody scattered about. Life sort of, kind of, moves back in the general direction of normal over the course of the next couple of weeks. Eric had mentioned Ari is able to not personally, but get the message passed to Mina that he intends to try and do something about Lucan. And the rest of you are able to move back into life in Stormreach after a very insanely hectic week or so gone.
Abroad.
Hmm?
Abroad.
Abroad, yes. Yes, after your
This was
your
not how
travel
Study Abroad was presented in the brochure.
Firing our travel agent.
Mm-hmm. So, it's been a couple of weeks. What have we been about, gang? What is the status of everyone as the immediate crisis settles, and you have at least the option of returning to something like normal?
Esri we hadn't talked about this beforehand, maybe we should have, but Esri would try to convince Shade and Cal to move indoors. And depending on whether or not they do that...
She likes being able to protect you from your exterior window. So
It's fair.
Are we roomies now?
Well, he wants to board up the windows and anything that goes to the outside.
In
Oh,
his
man.
room or the whole house?
Well, I suppose his room for now. That's where they came in before. But...
She sees the advantage for you, but man, being in a room with no windows makes her skin crawl.
Pog does have a balcony with a persistently open window so the ocelot can come in and lay on my mattress. So you could have my balcony if you wanted.
Son of a...
There is actually another room that opens onto, or that has a window onto that balcony that is, technically speaking, the room set aside for Shade.
Weird. Weird.
It is possible to open a different window and use that for egress and ingress.
We only got her to live indoors the time that indoors was a tree.
Tree, yeah.
Good
But
time.
yes, that is fine. If Esri wants to board up his window and she can just access the balcony from her room, you can board up your own window. That's fine.
Okay. So, Esri has fortified his exterior wall.
Okay.
And he keeps
Is
telling
Esri
everyone else
sober?
to do it too. Yeah. I mean,
That wasn't super convincing.
That sounds like how Eric and Philip had to answer that question about me in college. Yeah, more or less.
Does Esri go about a day? Like, he's boarded his windows. Is Esri kind of moved in a shut-in direction where he's not going out anymore? Or
he doesn't have anywhere to go anymore. Pretty much the only place he had to go was to Gerald's and Gerald's lab. So I guess he still has his greenhouse. So he will still go there.
okay,
When Esri leaves his room, he regularly finds trinkets that Shade has left for him. You know, a pretty leaf, the skull of a small animal that she found outside.
Shade is a cat?
She's just bringing.
I mean,
Shade
these
is a
are
barn cat?
right. I'm essentially like, she doesn't. You obviously are going through something, and she doesn't know how to make you feel better, but she wants you to have some pretty things because maybe that would make you feel better.
A gutted bird.
That's what I need when I'm down. A squirrel skull.
Right.
Just don't get it enough, you know? People don't see me.
Hairball.
So she doesn't actually bring you anything dead. She has learned that that's not appropriate in their years together, but she
Esri
does.
would like it.
Yeah, it might be the right
That's
crowd.
true.
Bring living animals, just drop those off.
They just won't stay that way.
Oh no, that's so.
Oh. Shay does not bring you any living animals.
Just said we were friends.
all right. What's Shade doing? Is Shade just watching Esri?
She is trying to get back into a routine, so she drops her daily pick me up on Esri's doorstep, and then is trying to figure out this whole teaching classes thing. Still, gotta keep them kids accountable, man.
Continued learning is so important. So, yeah, go to some conferences, things like that.
Shade at a conference. And then, you know, the daily check on River, and that's
Okay. Having been gone for a little while, the fact of the grove on your island being bigger is a lot harder to miss. It is denser. There are some smaller trees growing up on the edge of it. There are definitely some saplings that weren't there before, and it is becoming denser in a lot of places.
River's doing such a good job. She's grown so much.
She has. River is noticeably taller than all of the children at this point.
But, okay, That's weird. With what we learned about Cal, that's interesting.
That's true.
What's Ari up to?
Ari would have been kind of up Thora's butt a little about like his desire to what he did with the Dragonhawk, try to make friends within the city, trying to establish a more reliable network, I guess, with the various organizations within Stormreach. So Ari would have been trying to get Thora's like go ahead, okay / support in going and meeting with Knights of Thrain, Swords of Karn. Would have told her about the meeting with the Dragonhawk, and also Ari wanting to extend an invitation to the Dragonhawk since they are one of them, quote unquote. And Danelle's Wrath. Basically, Ari wants to start with the militias in terms of building up allies within the city, trusting that Thora can handle the Stormlord stuff for now. So, yeah, that's what Ari's been up to, or trying to be up to. In addition to teaching classes, trying to keep helping out Arlo any way that Ari feels really bad about like Arlo having to pick up all of their slack every time they run off. So, yeah, that too.
Fair enough.
And also wondering where the heck Forge is. That's also what Ari's been doing.
Understandably. So there has been no word from Forge. What about
Hate
Pog?
that. Pog has been spending his, I'm going to imagine, evenings with Solarka working on building a new weapon. That is where that time has been spent. All remaining dragon shards available for this to not only get a new weapon, but to try to have that quality bonding time with her every opportunity that he's presented with. So that's where the time has been finished teaching, and then as soon as her work day is over, heading over there for them to do some after hours work.
All right. Hog putting himself on a very short leash.
Shade did tell Cal about the information she learned and is giving Cal some time to decide if he wants to do anything about that, and if so, what that might be.
Okay. You don't consult with Puzzle Dust?
I mean, not intentionally. I'm sure that doesn't stop
Boy, I
Puzzle
hope
Dust
not.
from being a part of the conversation.
Okay. Okay. So, over this time, so Ari, in your conversations with Thora, trying to convince Thora that what is needed is to win friends and influence people, to build up alliances, that sort of thing. Thora's open, and Thora's willing to let you go and meet with people, but you can tell that there's a coolness, and you are under a strict mandate to make absolutely no deals, or agree to any terms of anything without consulting with her.
That is fair.
Roll for me a persuasion check, please.
21.
Great. So you have a mixed you have a mixed bag here. The Knights of Thrain have a positive view of you all in general, having never specifically discovered that you lied to and used them for the benefit of others. However, their agenda is pretty narrow. Their objective is just the safety of people in the town, particularly in their own little neighborhood, but in general, in the town. They're not connected in politics, and they don't get involved in the bigger politics of the city. But to the degree that your interest is in keeping your average person safe, keeping the regular citizens of Stormreach safe, they're in alignment with you. The Swords of Karn and Denel's Wrath. Well, the Swords of Karn are more difficult, and Denel's Wrath is the most difficult. Denel's Wrath, it seems like you and Denel's Wrath have a lot to work with, in the sense of Denel's Wrath concern is primarily with the displaced people of Khyber and finding a place for them. The problem you run into with Denel's Wrath is that being, someone who networks well, you're able to work out the undercurrent that exists in Denel's Wrath of the fact that they view Stormreach as that place for Chirans to come. And your notion of Stormreach as that place where aberrant marked people can come, you get there's a sort of possessiveness in the leadership of Denel's Wrath over this idea of, well, if you try to make this place a refuge for aberrant marked people, how's that going to interact with this place as a refuge for Chirans? It's probably not their official position, but you would also probably pick up, just in talking with them, that there's, among some of the members, there's also this idea that when they think of this as the new place for Chirans, they imagine this is New Khyber at some point. That at some point, that's going to have to involve the Chiron royal family gaining control of Stormreach. Again, this seems to be the more radical end of the spectrum for Denel's Wrath, but there. Then with the Swords of Karn, you have kind of the same problem, but a different scale. That the Swords of Karn are thinking very much beyond Stormreach. Stormreach is a useful base, and it's safe from the interference of the Five Nations. But their interest is in reuniting the Old Kingdom. Their interest is in that. Now, you get the impression that if you were to decide that that was also your goal, that there are some promises that might be made about the status of aberrant citizens in said restored kingdom.
Gotcha.
That the members that you're able to talk to express that Drago Thul would be very open to talking about what the status of aberrant citizens should be in a restored kingdom, and if you could bring aberrants around to help with that, they'd be all for it.
Would they use the term like a new Galifar or something like that, or do they couch it in different? Okay.
Yeah, they are talking about restoring the kingdom of Galifar there.
Okay.
The view is that you'd probably get the better picture of their political agenda than you have before. Their view isn't that like Drago Thul is the rightful king. Like, he doesn't claim he's got some sort of royal ancestry to the old kings.
Yeah.
It's that based on the way that they behaved throughout 100 years of war, based on the disassociation of the royals from the actual soldiers who were doing the fighting, from the actual people who were bearing the burdens and the costs of war, that none of the people who ended up in charge of the Five Nations were ever worthy to be king of Galifar, or even of the little pieces of Galifar that they smashed it all into. And so
Gotcha.
their idea is restore Galifar under somebody who deserves to be king, who will treat the people well. So it's a weird intersection of monarchism and populism. In the political agenda there. But
it's populism to establish a new monarch and then just let it go.
Right. But a populist monarch who's for the people. But they are definitely open to some sort of alliance. But you do have the impression that they would expect it to be a long-term, thinking beyond just Stormreach kind of alliance.
Gotcha.
So certainly you have your best luck with the Knights of Thrain. Your interests, Ari's specifically, and theirs mesh very well, and they don't have any like big scheme. They don't have any big plans for the city. There's no big they don't really even have a political agenda. It's just they don't approve of the theocracy that took over Thrain, and so they came here and they're just trying to do what they're supposed to do as Knights of the Flame.
Ari would be keeping both Thora and any other members of the strike force abreast to his meetings, like basically having a debrief after each meeting of, okay, here's what was said, so everybody else is fully aware of everything that Philip just said. Unless you decided not to attend the daily stand-ups, in which case that's your own fault for not being up to date on what's going on.
Don't corporate the strike
Shade
force.
asks a lot of questions.
And Ari does his best to answer those questions that Shade has.
Does Casey Shade have specific questions, or is this just Shade is always asking lots of questions?
No, I just want to communicate Shade's interest in learning those relationships and those dynamics. She is intentionally interested in that. Gotta understand
More
him.
often than not, Ari looks at Thora after Shade asks a question. Just, you can tackle this one.
Cool.
I don't know if they would be open to you being the queen of New Galifar, Shade. That would be a question for them.
Right. So what makes them currently ill-equipped to be the leader?
Drago Thul is unmarried.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Shade. Somewhere in this Amorphous 2 weeks, Cal does come back to you, and I have been thinking about it. I think I understand what you're saying. We've been back to the Feywild a few times, and what I'm understanding is that being from there, there's a story tied to me. And when I came here, I came out of story. And so my story hasn't moved forward. Not unhappy where I am and how I am, but I assume that I am like the other creatures from Feywild that we've met and have a story that is incomplete.
Do you remember your story?
No. I don't think it was like the story we went into where you found River. I didn't live in one of those. I lived in the wild. I don't know how stories work in the wild exactly.
Me either. But if you want to go back to finish your story, I could go with you to help you. Not that you would need help, but if you wanted help.
I do like having your help.
Thank you.
You're a good friend to have around.
Thank you. You are wonderful. And I am very glad we quickly became friends.
Thank you.
But you know that if you want to go back and not come back here, that you can, right? You aren't a prisoner here.
I don't think I would want to do that unless you were going and not coming back.
I don't want to go and stay there. No.
Then I don't either.
Okay. And she gives Cal some scritches.
But if we could figure out how to get to that part of the story where I have wings, that would be pretty cool.
That would be amazing. Find some people and ask them.
It seems likely, yes. Bog,
Hi.
a lot of dinners with you and Solarka, where she basically, the first several times that you see Solarka after you return, she basically just wants to know everything now. She's come to a point where just taking that part that you're ready to tell is not sufficient anymore. So how much does Pog tell her?
Yes. Yeah, it answers her questions. To the best of his abilities. The the finer points of what's happening currently, if that's a thing that she's asking about what Ari is saying, Ari would be seeing a lot of glaze-eyed Pog. We'll be there for it because this is important for the team, but this does not, like, we're with them or we're against them. What is more favors, like what is requests, and who cares who's where. So if she had any question about what's being planned, it would be a genuine I don't really know as the answer. But as for the day-to-day and what had led to that particular dinner of those questions, yeah, Pog would probably be a very open book. So she
Okay.
She would yeah, Pog would make the choice that she be the first person that he talked to about before the before times.
And that's kind of how it goes. She works her way backwards with questions. She wants to know everything about where you were. Like, she wants the full story. She wants to know what's going on with Pog. Pog has been kind of odd since his encounters with the Silver Flame, and she wants to know what's going on there. It's a while into it, and interspersed into this is the conversation about a weapon. She begins to, sketch interspersed into the conversations, ideas of what kind of weapon Pog wants. What is the weapon?
An axe made so much sense once he got his hands on it. And the not only apologetic Pog, but the one who recognizes he's talking to someone who is an artisan in the craft would obviously be surrendering to her expertise, but that's what he knows. That's what he's comfortable with at this point, and that's what he's missing having on his back. So that's the initial ask. That's what he would say is, I need a new axe. I need it bad.
She takes a lot of measurements to figure out how long the haft, how the blade. She asks a lot of questions about the way that Pog fights, to know the shape of the blade that's going to serve Pog best. She has an argument with you about weight when you insist on double blade, and then yields, supposing maybe you can manage it.
Fantasy, y'all. Fantasy. Philip and I had this actual discussion.
Weapon snob. Two-bladed axes are for cutting down trees. They're not for fighting people.
unless you want to cut them down like trees.
Can we not let Philip just fly by the fact that he Freudian slipped his way into weapon snog when talking about Solarka and Pocking out together?
What happens at the blacksmith stays at the blacksmith.
It's a Pog and Solarka date.
Some weapon snogging.
Wow, that's outstanding. But yeah, at a certain point, it comes around to where how did you end up in that program?
I have never told anyone. I don't know if I can. I've really enjoyed this and talking and sharing. And this is kind of new to share like this. But I don't know if I can ever share that. Also, no one's ever asked me, so I've never had to think about if I would talk about it.
She nods. Can't believe no one's ever asked you.
Me neither. I've been very lucky. Can I just think about how I would talk about that?
It's all right.
And then what you had asked me about how I got there.
Yeah.
I do want you to know me. But not everything that has happened is me. I think you know that. That's the world and life and living. I don't know my father anymore. Never really. And that was okay. But I only had my mom. And I wanted to be someone that made her proud. And made my people proud. Because not all of them were okay with me not being like them. And it made me angry. And I dreamed a lot about fighting. And that I would fight until my dad knew me. And until everybody liked me. my dreams felt very real. And I woke up sweaty a lot from them. And one night I dreamed that I could set things on fire. And when I woke up, I could. And this was here. And I had. And when the elders pulled me out, they couldn't save my mom. And they said I didn't have a place anymore. And I didn't get to go outside from where I was for a very long time. And when I did, it was so that people from the Institute could pick me up. And I've told you the rest since then.
Solarka just comes around and hugs you, just wraps her arms around you and hugs you tightly.
Pug cries, and poorly. The soft but gasping kind of tears. Mm-hmm. And after about a minute, desperately returns the embrace. And says, I don't want to hurt my people. I just don't want to hurt my people.
Ezri. In the greenhouse, there's a tapping at the window, the glass.
Nevermore.
Tapping, and eventually you look up, and perched is perhaps the wrong word, but sort of, managing on the framing of the greenhouse and tapping on the glass. There's a blackbird. Has vibrant red shoulders.
Do I recognize it?
No.
I can't open. I'll open the door.
It flies in and lands on the table.
I'll shut the door. I don't have anything in here you'd want to eat.
Where have you been, Ezri? Says the voice of Mirabella Urui.
Yeah. I have been to Cholinport and Sharn and here.
I think you know what I'm asking.
Can I suss out if, I mean, this bird is her? Like, is she like morphed, or this is she's talking through a common bird, or this is a familiar?
Can you
that
detect
kind of
magic?
thing? Yeah.
Detect magic would reveal a spell. If it's her polymorphed, it would reveal the spell.
I have so many spells now. I think I can do that. I've done that before, haven't I?
I think you have done that before.
Yeah, there we go. For casting time? Oh, okay. Sure. Yeah, I will.
If you want it to
Eyes
be a
will
ritual,
glow.
it doesn't need a spell slot.
Bright green.
You can detect that the bird is magical, but it is not a polymorphed individual.
Okay.
You would guess some sort of familiar.
I don't have the sword. And I can't get the sword.
I know that. Where is the sword that you can't get it?
I
Who took the sword?
won't tell you that.
Why not? What's changed?
We saw what it does or can do. And we can't come up with any good reason for someone to want it.
Has the soul of someone very important to me in it. To her, really. I wanted to get it
That
out.
soul does not.
Him out.
Was not kind. And was not good. That soul tried to hurt did hurt a lot of people.
It's a very judgmental attitude to take. Being trapped in a sword is probably not the most comfortable accommodation. Esri, who has the sword?
Know if I can do that, or if it'll do anything. I'll do it at 4th level.
That's an interesting question. Cast Dispel Magic on a familiar. the nothing happens to the bird, but the nothing happens to the bird, but it sort of ruffles its feathers and cocks its head at you. Still watching you intently,
go
but
open the door again.
apparently no longer able to speak.
And
The bird stares at you for a long moment, and then
I will
alights
immediately
and flies out the door.
go to Thora.
Hogs at the blacksmith shop. Esri's on the grounds. Who are you in a meeting with right now?
Let's say the Swords of Karn. Why not?
Okay, you're at the sword and sheath. Shade, where are you?
In the grove.
Pog and Ari. The ground starts to shake. Weapons and tools swaying and start to drop off of pegs at the blacksmith shop. Bottles start to crash behind the bar at Carl's. Shade. Whatever you and River are talking about, River suddenly just stops and looks around. And for a moment, there's nothing other than you notice that a whole lot of birds suddenly just take off out of the jungle all around in this cacophony of bird calls. And then you see probably the most visible landmark from where you're sitting would be the upper part of the Falconer's Tower, the airship dock. You see the Falconer's Tower ripple and sway like it's not made of stone and steel. And you hear this roaring, rumbling, and people screaming in alarm. Standing up, you see it's eerie because you're in the air. There's nothing's happening where you are. Like the island isn't shaking, but you can see the city. You can see the ground convulsing under the city. Ari, what do you do when the ground starts shaking?
Give a quizzical look to the people I'm meeting with and get up and go outside.
Okay. Pog, what do you do when the
Dramatically
ground
look
starts
down
shaking?
the
Grab
street.
Solarka and we run outside of the blacksmith so we don't get weapons rained down on us and into the square.
Okay. People are going everywhere. People are running up and down the street. Ari, Pog, you have time to look up in the middle of the market square, of the marketplace, this huge bazaar. In the middle of the bazaar is the Falconer's Tower. And you see it shaking crazily, and you hear this almost slow roar as it starts to come down. And you see the wave, the ground still shaking under your feet. You see the wave of smoke and dust that billows up from it, flies
Run
towards you
perpendicular.
like a wall. You don't see anything. Ari, crowds of people running, screaming through the streets. This is a city built on ruins. Chunks of things are starting to fall off. People are taking shelter under tables in the bar, as everything on the walls is flung around. Come to think of it, give me a dexterity saving throw.
No, I'll just take the 10. Yeah, I'll
We are long rested, though, right? I can reset. Okay.
Yes. The ground, you watch the street ripple, and are thrown from your feet against a wall, and have time to look up as the wall comes down on you. And I think that's where we'll leave this episode. You'll find links to all of our social media down in the description, as well as a link to Colin's Twitch page where he is sorry BTR. The O is a 0. New episodes of Khyber Shards drop every Monday. New Khyber Shards answers every Friday. And until next time, thanks for rolling with us.